Yo.
All right, we're good. All right, just Johnny here with the Geek Down and also Dirty D.
What's up, fellas? How you guys doing today?
So what we're doing is we're doing a special extended review of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So for our main show on Monday nights, that airs live on Twitch and also on WMF Radio, and that's an hour-long show. And sometimes we get cut off. We can't fit in as much things as we want to fit in, and that's
Yeah.
especially so for a game like Zelda Breath of the Wild, where there's so much to talk about and so much stuff to bring up for it. So we decided that we should have an additional extended review. It's going to be here on Twitch, then we'll bring it over to YouTube as well for
Yes.
later on. So I think we should just start getting into it. Maybe, and I just want to bring up that some of the things that we didn't get to cover, which kind of it struck a nerve on my side. We didn't cover anything negative during our review on the live show, and
Yeah.
for me, there aren't things negative, and because we weren't able to cover that, it seems like people might write off the quality of our review just because we were we had our raging hard-ons.
Nintendo lick.
Yeah.
Cartridge lick.
So anything you want to
I
add in
agree
there?
because I agree 100%. You know, this game is tremendously perfect, but every game has its little tiny flaws that comes along with just programming and crunching. So I think my main negative thing about the game is just sometimes when you use the magnesis rune, just positioning depending on where you're standing in the game, etc. The motion, the camera angles get into. Sometimes it just puts you in a position where trying to get that perfect aim or wherever you're trying to position the block or whatever it is you're using for the magnesis rune, it just makes it a little bit unnecessarily difficult with a game like that. That's what's aggravating to me, especially since I play predominantly on my Switch as a handheld as opposed to playing on the big screen.
Okay.
That's a major difference, but I just for some reason since I got this game, I've been playing it on the handheld. It just it's fulfilling some type of urge or something like that.
And the way you play could probably affect the controls of the magnesis because you have that added weight of the system, the console itself, in your hands, and also the controller layout isn't as traditional
Yeah.
and I have it right over here, the Pro controller. So this is very much. I mean, I can hold it up against a PS4 remote. This is very much, almost the same. Certainly the same sort of overall contour and grip and functionality, and some of the button placements. The sticks are a little different, but I mean, for the most part, you're getting a very traditional, very well-crafted controller. But for the Joy Cons on the console in handheld mode, and I've played mostly on the TV,
Yeah.
but there are plenty of times where I took it out, especially going to the restroom.
Well, you know,
That was a big favorite of mine. I mean, I just
sometimes
couldn't
I
put
feel
that
like
put it
that's
down.
kind of what they had in mind for that whole
Oh,
situation.
yeah.
Sometimes.
That was in their advertising too for the
I didn't
Switch
even pay attention.
itself. In their German and I think UK advertising, they just had some dude in the bathroom, pants down, Switch in hand.
That's awesome.
No shame, no shame at all. But
But
yeah.
what,
Back to
uh,
the controls for that. Yeah, I can certainly see the frustration with that. I would say maybe less so with some of the puzzles because you're not rushed. It's certainly a little wonky, but not too much. But when you're in combat and you want to use magnesis, I almost never use magnesis in combat.
I've done it once or twice. For the same reasoning because you can do it basically. But because this game lets you do absolutely anything you put your mind to, which is amazing.
Yep.
But I tried it once or twice in combat, and it didn't work out the way I wanted to. It was just again the camera angle kind of added the one flaw to that whole idea I had. I was trying to I had to pick up the metal box from the bottom. I was trying to attack a little bobblekin encampment in the trees, like a treehouse, and I was just trying to jump down and see if I could just swing it at him, and it just didn't work out the way I expected it to. But it's pretty good, dropping. It's more strategic than anything else. The magnesis is just a strategic tool, so just approach your situation smart and just figure out where magnesis's strengths are for that situation. And 9 times out of 10 it'll work out, which is hilarious because if you think it, you can do it.
Oh yeah.
It's, and I think this is what people don't understand. Like, we're not trying to say we're not looking for flaws, but those are like probably the only flaws I can honestly think about with the game, unless you have something else that you wanted to add in there.
Yeah, let's go into some of the flaws that I found with the game. And I'll jump right into one of the ones that not too many people pick out. And while saying this, I just remembered another one which is pretty important. But before going into that, I'll go into one of the ones that not too many other reviewers sort of pick up, which is, for me, it's not a huge flaw, but it's by the time I finished up the game, the enemy variety. And what I mean by that is sort of, I guess, the race of the enemy. Like, you have the bokoblin race, and there's variety within there. There's the red ones, the gray ones, the white ones.
Yep.
The brown.
The color indicates how difficult they are, etc.
Yeah, and they had the same thing for the moblins, and they had that for the Lizalfos. But the actual, like, different enemy types, the like the bokoblins, the moblins, the Lizalfos, it was fairly limited for what I was expecting for a Zelda game. There was no sentry, those statues. If you look at the original Zelda game, those statues that come alive when you touch them, the ghosts at the graveyard, there wasn't any of those. I think they're called the Techites or Tektites, the jumping spiders.
Okay, Tektites.
With the big eye.
Yeah, Tektites.
Yeah. So there was none of those, and I mean, there's even more here and there. Now they also added a couple additional monsters that are unique.
The Choo-Choos.
Well, the Choo-Choos have been in other Zelda games, but
which one? Not in the ones that I played. I played Ocarina,
Skyward
Wind Waker.
Sword had them.
Oh, I didn't finish Skyward Sword. My Wii went on a nice little trip down the street. I don't know what happened to my Wii that year. I played it hard on that game.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, like, all right. So the Stalnox, which is the skeletal.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So that one was certainly a new type, and that was actually kind of fantastic.
And I like the strategy behind it, because if you get jumped by at least 3 of them, you need to knock all of them off and destroy the heads. And if you don't destroy one head, then the bodies still continue. Like, it's like some huge mass possession occurring just within that little pocket of the land. So it's a great touch. It was a very good touch. It added a lot of strategy to the game. I mean, they were fairly easy to kill, but talk about farming. If you needed talk about farming for some potions, man. I was going ham.
Yeah, so that was one thing that I was a little put off by, was the amount of variety, but it wasn't bad at all. There was certainly plenty of enemies there, plenty of variety, and each enemy had a lot to their AI. They're very complex, and they had a lot of animation. They had a lot of different reactions to how you're going at them and how they go at you.
And I think what I wanted to add to it before you moved on is I think they compensated that with the blood moon phase. When periodically you'll get the blood moon, and it intensifies and brings back the enemies, and I think they're stronger for that night. I rarely play anything on the blood moon. One thing I do under the blood moon is create potions and create stuff, because under the blood moon you get more boost to the potions, et cetera, et cetera. And that's that's the only time I look forward to doing it. But I think that's what they did, and if they did do that, I'm probably going to try it tonight. I'm going to go in and I'm going to start a couple of fights during the blood moon, because I hardly did that during the game, because you're just so captured with everything else that you could possibly do. And again, I'm trying to look for another negative as you're talking, and we're obviously got a list we're going to tackle, but again, this truly feels like a game when someone says you play this how you want, as you feel. It literally captures the spirit of the kind of person that you are when you approach your video games, and it reflects 100%. You know what I mean? If you can play this game in any way, form, or fashion, but I've never had a game reflect that. You know what I mean? Like I have friends who have Switches. We carry them around, and I'm telling Johnny, I looked at my guy's hand. I was like, dude, really? You're not? He's had this thing for like almost as long as I've had it, and I'm just looking at him like, where's your progress at, man? Like, what are you doing? Like, oh, I beelined it to Ganon. And I'm like, dude, it's impossible to beeline it to Ganon. You get into those arguments and stuff like that. So, it's and I wanted to touch on something. The season pass. What is up with this? I
Oh
don't know if it's
yeah.
something that are they going to attach to it because not to deviate from what we're trying to do structurally real quick. Does this add value to the game for you as well? Like, because I don't know how deep they're gonna delve. I've hardly dealt with Nintendo season pass. I don't know if you have or not. So
I've purchased their Mario Kart DLC, which is probably one of the best examples of DLC done right.
oh wow,
Just with the amount of value that they give you
okay,
for what you pay. I think it was $10. It was either $10 or $15 for the Mario Kart for each chunk, and there was two big chunks, and there was I think 8 courses each with some additional I think like cars and characters to select
great.
from, which is pretty phenomenal, seeing as how the game came with I think 32. So when you put it together for I think $20, you get 16 courses, a bunch of characters, a bunch of new
Wow, that's a pretty good deal.
vehicles. It's a pretty good deal. So that
Yeah,
was an
longevity.
example of them doing it pretty good. Now with
Okay,
I'm also trying to pull up a list here. Just give me a few seconds while I look up a list of what the Zelda DLC is. I know where it is. I just don't want to miss anything.
good.
So I know it is $20.
Yeah, that was the pricing. That was a reasonable price.
Okay, here we go. All right, so what they have is it's sort of think of it as, and they didn't really communicate this well. They said it's the expansion pass bonus, and then there's
Okay,
the DLC pack 1, and then the DLC pack 2. And I think
okay,
the fault that they had was they didn't sort of uh, re- tell the consumer that this is all one big giant package that you get for the $20, and people sort of thought, oh, this is a bunch of different packages, and really the best one is the last one, the DLC pack 2. uh,
yeah,
and people wanted to just buy that. So that's sort of where they kind of fell short on this. What I think they did. So now, like, let me go into the
okay,
details. So the expansion pass bonus is what you get immediately, right from day one, and you essentially get 3 treasure chests in the Great Plateau, and within
okay,
them there's some useful items. I don't know what they are. People know what they are by now, but none of them were like game changing at all. Maybe one of
okay,
them was like a fire wand or something like that. And you also get a red Nintendo Switch T-shirt
oh,
that Link
oh,
can
okay,
wear. So
oh, okay. That's
a
pretty
little,
cool.
it's cool. It's not like it's a little weird because some people might say like, oh, that takes away the immersion of why is
Yeah.
Link wearing like a Nintendo Switch shirt, but some people like it, so it's not bad.
Remember, it's 100 years in the future.
Yeah,
Tech-
yeah.
expansion.
They already had their Switch, and Ganon
Well,
destroyed it all, so now
calamity.
yeah, they're all pissed off because they lost their Switch. So DLC Pack 1, which comes out sometime in the summer of this year,
Great.
and that one has the Cave of Trials challenge, which, from what I understand, is similar to Twilight Princess. There's this I don't know if it was a cave or a dungeon where you just fight tons and tons of enemies, and it gets progressively harder, and you kind of see
Oh, somewhat
how
like a
deep
horde
into
mode.
it. Like what?
Like a horde mode.
Yeah, yeah. Like you fight wave after wave, but
Yep.
I think each wave is like another floor of the dungeon or something like that. I'm not sure how they're gonna play it out in this DLC pack, but from what I understand, it's a bunch of combat challenges
Great.
and see how long you can last, kind of thing. Also within there is a hard mode, which the game is hard to begin with, but by the
Yeah, I'm
time you get to
excited
the
to
end,
try.
yeah, like people when they first saw this are like, oh, hard mode that should be built into the game. But Zelda has never had a hard mode except for a couple of Zelda games which did. But most of the Zelda games never had a hard mode. And for
Yeah,
this one, it didn't need a hard mode. It was challenging. And then eventually, when you get to the end game, you'll be a badass. So you don't. It's
yeah,
not hard anymore, but it's still like very fun and interesting. So
exactly.
when when you beat the game, you're gonna want the hard mode. You're definitely not gonna want the hard mode right off rip. So I think that, and it also depends on what this hard mode is. If it's just playing around with some numbers, giving enemies additional HP, that might not be interesting. I guess
Maybe improve the AI interaction
that
some level.
that would be very
That would be
interesting.
great.
Yeah.
That's why I would want to replay it. That there's a couple some of those if you want to call it a negative, I think something that I realized I've been playing a lot of the mini bosses recently. I've really kind of again viewers you can play this game literally any way how you want and it will reflect. And I think that's a positive on a huge level because you can save certain things that you want to do for later. So, you could just kind of skip that, put a stamp on your map and don't forget about it. I don't know if there was a limit on to stamps. I've never actually maxed out on stamping on the map,
Yeah, I think
but
it's 100.
you can put up to 100 stamps. Yeah.
Yep.
So, it allows a lot of flexibility to remind yourself of things that you'd want to interact with later once you
Yep.
play the way you decide to play. But long story short, I think that if you it's maybe it's a negative because I'm sorry I paused a lot because I'm really trying to formulate it right because I don't want to make it sound like it's a huge deal. But I kind of want to touch on and I forgot, Johnny. I'm sorry. You got to edit that out.
Oh, that's right. You were talking about the stamps and the map,
Yeah. Well, the
and I
stamping.
think the bosses coming back to them.
Thank you. The mini map. You stamped the mini map to remember what. That's what I did. I stamped the mini map to find what the bosses were to remember where they were, and I started tackling them now. And I find that they were very easy to spam. That's what I was trying to get to for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And because I spammed the first three, the troll and one of the rock mini bosses. I want to say Talus.
Yeah, I think it's Talus.
Yeah, and I also spammed because you can literally go anywhere. I went to Hyrule. I hightailed it to Hyrule to get the Hyrulean shield,
Yep.
and I just got that last night. And I spammed the major Skeletos that's there. And I'm not trying to give away any spoilers if I am. I'm sorry, but
I think saying that the Hylian shield is in the game is not that big of a deal. It's
all
Zelda.
right. I'm
That's
just
like
like I
saying
don't know.
that, oh, there's a Master Sword in the game.
And there's
That
another
was in the
positive to
trailer
that.
too, so.
I know, but there's another positive. It's like where like you really have a profound sense of like accomplishment once you find it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was so hard to get to the Master Sword at that point. Like I think I've ran through that trial like maybe I don't know 15 times before I just actually decided to like Google. Oh, okay, this is kind of like the path. All right, cool. Let's just speed that up because I want to get to the shield. But finding the shield was a reward in itself. Sneaking into the castle was extremely difficult. You had to maneuver. You had to be smart. But if you want to call it a negative, man, being able to spam some of the mini bosses kind of aggravated me because they were so much bigger. I had a tough time getting adjusting to the AI with the bigger Bobokans, especially when they're on
The Moblins.
thank you, the Moblins, and especially with the Bobokans on horseback.
Yep.
I still have a little bit of trouble trying to maneuver that aspect of the game as well. But if you want to call that a negative, yeah, you spamming a mini boss probably aggravated me a little bit, but it still doesn't take away from the greatness of the game, man. Like I just can't keep saying that enough.
Well, it's also not required too.
Exactly. So you can approach them in a different way too.
I think the bosses, the world bosses, as you encounter them throughout the world,
Yeah.
they are challenging. But once you sort of learn how they work and what their moveset is, they change it up as you continue to go. But for the most part, you'll sort of get down how they work, especially when you get more powerful gear. They end up becoming sort of a pushover
Okay.
later on. But that's sort of something that you kind of expect to happen when in a game that you're building up your character, building up your stats, getting stronger,
Yeah.
getting better equipment. So it's kind of expected. So the challenge in Breath of the Wild really
I'm
is.
assuming that's your play
Yep.
style. You kind of just build up as you go, or do you kind of tackle as you go? I kind of I just I go straight to grinding. I just I grind to a certain point, progress, grind to a certain point, progress, grind to a certain point. So that's my pretty much my play style for any RPG style game.
I was just exploring as much as possible. I wanted to see as much of the world as possible, and ended up. I wasn't purposely trying to farm things. I wasn't purposely
Yeah,
trying to repeat anything. I don't think I ever repeated anything intentionally. It was
yeah,
just me exploring something, and it was always something new to explore. So I was always moving on.
yeah.
So let's finish up the DLC stuff. So the last one on the DLC pack 1 is an additional map feature, which they didn't sort of explain what that was. So that's all in the pack 1 that comes in summer, and then pack 2 is the more interesting one as far as I'm concerned. First off is new original story.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
which
didn't read that.
that could be awesome. So they don't say what it is, but new original story, new dungeon, which
Ooh.
that's very seeing as how there's only 4 dungeons in the game, and they're pretty substantial. They're not
Exactly.
they're not the longest dungeons in the Zelda game, but they're definitely not the shortest. And
Just just the approach and the
yeah,
interaction, trying to get to the dungeon, and when you get in, that's more
yeah.
than enough. They did a great job.
And then the last one is additional challenges. I'm not
Okay.
sure what that is, but it could be quests or something.
Now, is
Um,
this one massive DLC or just progressive releases over time, or?
oh, and that one. So the first one is immediate. The DLC pack 1 is summer, and
Yep.
then that one, that chunk of those 3 things, the from DLC pack 2 is holiday this year.
Ooh, wow.
So
What a way to farm that money.
yeah, there were some people on the internet that were really upset because Nintendo announced the DLC before the game release, which is a bad move. But like, I guess the other part is people were worried that Nintendo was cutting content in order to fit
Okay.
into DLC to then repackage and sell later. But trust us when we say this. Nintendo did not cut a single thing. This game is massive,
I'm
absolutely
trying to figure
massive.
out how you can add on to any more of already a perfect story too.
Yeah.
What else on the list that we're tackling?
So some more of the negatives that we didn't get to touch on. The obvious one is the frame rate, which pretty much
Yeah.
everyone complained about. It's certainly there. There's one area in particular that is super bad with the frame rate, but for the most part, it didn't detract from the experience.
Yeah.
And you kind of know, you get used to, you kind of know when the frame rate's going to take a hit. Usually it's in very lush, grassy, heavily wooded areas,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
when the wind is blowing. But
Yeah.
I mean,
A lot of interaction with the environment. Yeah.
yeah. But other than that, I mean, the frame rate, it's only it's it's not happening all the time. It's only in those areas, so you know when it's going to happen, so you can avoid it.
Plan your
Yeah,
plan your day
yeah. Plan your day.
because you
It's
have a little mini forecast.
Yeah, and there's other environments in this game that doesn't have lots of grass. And all those other environments, you have nothing to worry about when it comes to frame rate. It's
Yeah.
silky smooth, and for the most part, it's silky smooth, other than a few hiccups here and there. So it didn't detract from my experience at all.
Did any of your frame rates cause a crash? Because I think I had maybe two crashes in between the entire time I've had it.
I did
Um,
I did not crash.
very few and far between. I don't know if it was a switch issue or if it was just the frame rate causing.
I think it's a Switch issue because I
Okay.
crashed on leave exiting out of snipper clips.
Okay.
So that actually, it wasn't a crash. It like locked my system completely, and
Oh,
I
wow.
couldn't do anything. I couldn't even power off the system. It was weird. So I had to leave it on and let the battery drain on my Switch. I had to remove it from the dock so that it wouldn't charge, and left it like that because it showed the main menu on the Switch, and I couldn't interact, and so I just left that on overnight to let the battery drain,
Oh
and
wow, night
yeah,
of agony, dude.
it was a little annoying, but I was already kind of done playing for the night, so it
Yeah,
was more of a slight inconvenience. I was definitely worried about what that was all about, but it wasn't that big of a deal. I just
she
let
walking
it
by
let
there.
it die, then booted it up early in the morning, and it was perfectly fine after
Great.
after recharging it. All right, so let's go into a couple more negatives here. Here's a pretty big one that I had, and that's with the localization effort that Nintendo of America did for this game. I think they
Okay.
did a really piss poor job of localizing this game. With some and that's in the when you're viewing it from the same perspective of like how great everything else is in this game.
Yeah,
when the
exactly.
when the localization effort that was done, it just looked like they skimped out and
Yeah,
didn't find the best of talents. They missed a golden opportunity here to sort of match the amazingness of the rest of the game with the first time ever voice acting in a Zelda game. They sort of
exactly.
missed this opportunity to really nail it.
I mean,
And
out of
yeah,
all the voice, what was the major portion of the localization that you didn't like at all? Like,
the voice acting for most of the characters was not good. It wasn't bad. I think
yeah.
there was only maybe like one character that was blatantly bad, but
Which one?
uh,
He
which
said blatantly bad.
blatantly bad. I think it was one of the
The-
Gorons.
oh, okay,
Yeah, I
yeah.
wasn't I wasn't a
Yeah.
fan of the Goron characters, how they talked.
Sound like, yeah, they were like a little dumbed down a little bit.
Yeah, it was a little weird. But with that said, the
With that, who
yep,
was your more, who was your favorite?
I really like Sidon.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
he was
he is.
hilarious.
Yeah,
Very,
I just like this personality too. Yeah, he's like,
yes.
yeah,
Ha listen,
yeah.
we can do this.
It was very boisterous. You know what? Another character that was also kind of bad was the Rito,
Yeah, the bird.
um,
Yeah,
the champion one.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Every dungeon had its champion. I forget the name because the games were. I just I can't remember anything on the game.
yeah.
I just kind of focus on my gameplay.
Yep.
Because I kind of just started grinding out. I just dove into the story. I didn't really care. I was caught up in like this. I just I have a huge imagination, and some a lot of my childhood was fantasies. I went back and forth between Star Trek and stuff like Dungeons and Dragons and Final Fantasy, medieval based games, and it just captured that so hard for me, man. Like sometimes I just got so into the fantasy of the game that I just got on the horse and I just started riding the outback, and I'm like, I'm gonna fight anything that comes my
Yeah.
way. I'm gonna rescue somebody over here. Thanks for the food, I appreciate it. I'm out.
So immersive.
Yeah, and it just the immersion rate, the immersion factor of this game is intense, man. I can't say it enough. I keep repeating myself, but it's just been such a long time, man.
Yeah, if I didn't play VR, and I would say this does a better job of immersion than a lot of the VR games I've played.
Yeah,
But I mean, VR is meant for immersion, and this was
exactly.
hitting that and
On the money.
doing so much. I can only imagine a Zelda game of this caliber in VR would just blow my mind. I don't think I'd ever unplug.
I
That's it.
know, man. It's legit. It's legit that addictive, man.
Yeah.
So the localization wasn't something you were a fan of. You thought it could have been better, but there wasn't that much localization to work on. I mean, there was very few. There was just the memories, and
For
then you
for
had
voice
the
acting, yeah.
yeah. Well,
It
it was
was
the first attempt, I guess. But yeah, granted, I kind of see what you're leading on with that, and I'll agree to that. I thought it was all right at first. It wasn't really a bother. The localization didn't bother me too much.
Yeah. I thought
Uh,
I thought it was a problem of Nintendo of America because Nintendo of Europe, uh, as an example, they localized Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii, and this is going back I think 5 years.
yeah,
That was some of the best voice acting I've heard in a game up
Wow.
up to the caliber of like Mass Effect. Very well
Yeah.
done, amazing localization job, and I mean it was all UK voices, like very like their Cockney accents and British London whatever
Yeah.
accents and stuff like that. But it was amazing, lots of emotion, just really good, talented vocal work and everything. I mean, you want to talk about tons and tons of voice acting. There was a ton of voice acting in Xenoblade. Zelda is minuscule compared to that when it came to how much voice acting there was.
Yeah.
So you kind of figure it's already cheaper than that kind of effort, the Xenoblade effort, but they did not match it. They should have gotten the Nintendo of Europe team to do the localization for
Yeah.
the US one because they
It would have
did.
probably been a better decision. Yeah.
It'd be nice to hear what the UK soundtrack or audio track is like for this game. It's probably way better than the US one.
It's gotta.
I'm almost
There's
certain of
got to
that.
be a way to find it.
Yeah. Uh,
There's be a way to import it somehow.
so that that was another thing, and some of the dialogue, how it was translated was, and this is like the text dialogue was a little weird, a little disjointed. It could have been written
Yeah.
better, but for the
Yeah.
most part, almost all the text was good. There was just a couple instances where it was a little weird.
Yep.
And then I guess the last thing about the localization, and this really goes into the voice acting specifically, the audio
Hmm.
quality was almost amateur at some points.
Wow. I,
It was the production quality, how it was recorded. It just
yeah.
sounded like they that was the biggest indication to me that they skimped out on the budget for localizing because I could
Okay.
hear the amateur recording quality that they did for the voice actors.
Yeah.
So,
Sometimes there was a slight delay on certain things. Yeah.
yeah. All right. So another negative that I have, and when I say negative, like most of these are you can absolutely overlook, and none of these detract from the experience. So much
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
to dock it any kind of points or anything like that.
Yeah.
These are like nitpicking what
You
a
just
game
you just
does. Yeah.
you compromise. You have to compromise for it. It's like
Yeah.
it can't be. It's just compromise for technology. That's all.
Yeah.
So
There are problems with every game. I mean, if you look hard enough, you'll find plenty of problems in any of the greatest games that are out there, and this one's no exception. There's some problems, but it's pales in comparison to the grand scheme of things. The last one I have here is the music, and
okay.
for the most part, all the music is fantastic, especially
All
the the end.
Yeah.
That is my favorite right there. That
I
one's
wanted.
just
I was hoping you would touch on that because it was last night I finally tackled it and it's when I paid it I went there early because I wanted to pick up I read Zelda's Diary early but you told me pay attention to the music and I finally sat down and I listened to it and I was just like because I had it on my headphones last night and I was just like wow,
it is
epic
pumping.
soundtrack. I mean at points it just felt like it was moving with me. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
every time I entered a certain room, it just shifted. I'm like, oh my god, even the quality, even the music made me
and
have
it
to peek around. Like okay,
and it changed whenever you were inside, and whenever you
yep,
were outside, it would change to a different
that is very somber.
song.
I mean,
Yeah.
outside the soundtrack, if you wanted to kind of visualize it, it just felt like you were. It was your first time back at Hyrule Castle after 100 years of just being non-active, and you powered up and you're ready to go, and it just captures that moment
Oh yeah.
perfectly when you're outside of the castle. It was such a great
Very
feeling.
very epic. Yeah.
I'll if I had to compare that to anything, when I first played Halo, Halo was one of the few soundtracks that really reached out to me. That original Halo soundtrack just sold the game 100%. It just made you feel like Master Chief. This game made you feel like you were Link.
Yeah.
Like the immersion factors are probably the main selling point of the game. And,
So with the music, some of the things I didn't like was some of the towns, mainly the Goron town. I didn't care too much for that song,
yeah,
that music, and but that's it's not bad at all. It's just
Yeah,
compared to the music in some of the other villages were fantastic. That one felt a little lackluster. And then the other one that irked me a bit was the lack of music in the overworld when you're just wandering around exploring. It's not that I didn't appreciate the lack of it. I
yeah,
definitely appreciated it, but when it did chime in, especially when you're on horseback, you hear the very subtle, the original Zelda theme
yeah,
playing very subtly in the back, but then you have like this jangling of piano keys on top of that, and it ruined that. Like, why not just, if you're gonna tease the original Zelda theme, like
yeah,
orchestrated, very well done, if you're gonna tease that, but then have like this piano stuff that is the main theme of this game playing on top
yeah,
of it, just play the Zelda theme, like play the original theme. Don't hide it. Just put it out there because it is a very epic, very recognizable song, and it only plays when you're on the horseback riding
yeah.
around.
It's a good observation, man, and I agree with that, man. I didn't it would have added to the ambiance of the game already great, but what did you think of the song for Karuku Village? Because it really got on my nerve because it's kind of like the basic song they played in most Zelda villages when you did tackle it, but the I think at this level of game creation and this level of game development, I think you could have just added a little bit more. Like I understand you wanted to capture
Uh,
the essence of Zelda, but at this, everybody had their own race, everybody had their own feel, so just add the music change too. I was referring to the stables too. Like every stable was pretty much redundant,
yeah,
but at the same time, it had its uniqueness to each one. But maybe each, I felt like it should have reflected the area that they were in. That was one of my another
yeah.
negative that I kind of noticed. If you wanted to really nitpick at the game at that level.
Well, what they were doing with the stables, it's like a remix of the of Lone Lone what was it, Epona song from
Epona,
Ocarina of
yeah, yeah.
Time. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
So it's sort of it's that because it makes sense. Like you're at a stable,
yeah.
so it makes
And
sense.
then
But
show respect to
yeah,
Epona.
but I definitely get you where they could have fine tuned it a little bit more according to the area that the stable was located.
Yeah,
Yep.
just
But
reflect it.
I actually really like the Kakariko Village music. Really, really like it. That's like one of my favorites on there too.
Tunes of all
Uh,
time.
it mainly because I was just listening to the soundtrack that came with the game,
Oh wow,
and
about the
they
Master Edition. That's right.
yeah, they put in a lot of effort into that song in particular, and it shows. It's very Japanese style
Okay.
instruments and things like that playing. It was pretty magical.
What'd you think of the Rito accordionist, if you want to refer to that?
Oh, yeah, Cass.
Cass, thank you. What'd you
Yeah,
think of that whole part of the game? I thought that was a little at times unnecessary, but I felt like they were trying to supplement more story through him. Because the story is kind of nil in the game too. I should say that. I mean, if you're looking for like something that has like a real linear story, it's far from that.
yeah. I thought it was great. It doesn't give you anything that's critically important,
Yeah,
but it does give you additional backstory in a game that doesn't have too much there going for you, and it's optional. And
yeah,
then
it's true.
his other song stuff is you'll see him randomly in the world, and it's usually linked to some sort of shrine quest
Okay,
thing. Yeah.
all right.
So I actually liked him as a character and the music that was associated with him with the little accordion.
Accordion. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
Yep.
you distracted me a lot. I had a lot of fights, and I'd run by, and I'm like, "Hey, wait, you're playing the accordion right now? Like, come on."
You're fighting
It's
too
just hilarious.
close. Yeah. You got to move the fight away from him. There was a one area in particular that has a shrine quest, and it's always thunderstorming in that area, and he's playing the Song of Time on his accordion.
Oh,
Not no
nice.
wait, not Song of Time, the Song of Storms, I think.
Okay,
Yeah, the one in the
that's
windmill.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I avoided that area for a little while.
All right. So a couple things that you had listed here was gameplay mechanics. You want to talk about that?
um,
And I'll be right back.
yeah, good. Gameplay mechanics is fine. I thought it was a little lackluster when it came to the camera roll and the way the camera attached to the magnesis, etc. But other than that, most of the game is pretty fluid. Um, Mechanic wise, um, the gameplay with the sword is great. You can with the lock on trigger. I mean, most of my negative aspects of that would be with mainly the build of the Joy Cons attached to the tablet itself. So I think that's more of my negative standpoint. Negatives come from when it comes to relation to camera and mechanics. But other than that, I think it's great. I think it did well. There's nothing really more I can really say on that. And um, you know, the game is great. Yeah, I keep emphasizing that. I wanted to do this review a lot because it's just one of those games that brought back a nostalgic sense of a gamer. You know what I mean? And everybody deserves to have that feeling. So, but gameplay mechanics, otherwise, I think it was just more of my concern with the build of the Joy-Con. Like I said earlier, the Joy-Con is poorly built. I have to go buy a Pro controller because I opted out not buying the Pro controller. So I'll shell out the 70 and go get the Pro controller now to when the hard difficulty comes on, I can rerun that thing a little better.
But it is definitely worth it. It's
Yeah.
you feel right at home as soon as you get that Pro controller in your hands.
Amen. He sold it, guys. I'm just letting you know. I opted out. I figured I can run with the Joy-Con adapter, et cetera, et cetera. It's horrible. It does nothing for my big hand. So I'm gonna shell out the $70 that is for the Pro controller, and I will
Oh man.
reattack my baby game.
We have a bunch of people on chat here complaining that we're not paying attention to chat. Sorry about that. On Twitch
We
chat.
apologize.
We're looking at it now. If you have things that we want to respond to, just go ahead and type away, and I'll try to be on top of that a bit.
Yeah,
So all right, so we got gameplay mechanics. That's probably like the bread and butter of this game is
yeah,
just those gameplay mechanics and what they have in there and all these systems. And we touched a good deal on that with what you said earlier just now, and also with what we did on our show on Monday.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
it's really something that you can talk about them over and over again, but like you really just need to
Experience.
play and just to someone new, just yeah, the gameplay mechanics are amazing. Just here, you'll see how amazing they are by handing them the controller, and they'll realize that there is something special there.
And it's an ode to classic hard work and quality of a game, man. That's what the gameplay mechanic. That's how I'll, like I said, my negatives is because of the build of the Joy-Con and the way I'm playing it. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you don't play the game because of gameplay mechanics. It's my negatives are strictly with the controller. That's it, and I'm gonna go fix that problem tomorrow. But um, just play the game, play it the way you want, and it's an ode to the quality of good gaming because it makes you think, it makes you reflect, it makes you take a step back, it forces your brain to work,
Yeah.
hands down.
Oh
There's
yeah.
nothing else I can say about that. It just forces your brain to work.
And the best part, it's not how they want you to think. It's they give you enough tools and enough. The gameplay mechanics are so like flexible that you
Yeah,
can think in your own personal way and it'll work. They
exactly.
made their puzzles to work for pretty much anyone. If they can think it up, they can kind of get it to work in so many different ways.
Yeah, we touched on it on the show a lot, and you made a
Yeah.
lot of great points just about the physics. And you know, it, if you think you can do it, it can be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost 90% of the time it can be done. And I'm it's again, it's an imaginary fantasy computer world, but if you think it can be done. And it's the immersion fact that sold the immersion. That was probably 100% a portion of what the immersion factor is.
There were
What did you like?
there were some armor sets that required special uh, elemental types of choo choo jelly,
Yep.
and I was thinking like, now I got to go and farm these types of creatures in order to get the right elemental one, and they're kind of rare spawns. I'm like, it's gonna be a pain to farm them. But I had a
Yeah,
ton of the regular blue choo choo jelly, whatever. So I'm like,
yeah, the early
wait
plateau
a
area.
minute. I just took a bunch, held it, threw it on the floor, and then at the time I was looking for the red choo choo jelly. I just shot it with a fire wand, and it turned it into red. It added the heat, and I was like, oh, brilliant
Alchemy.
alchemy right there. I'm just like,
Like, and I think that's something that we didn't touch on. It was the crafting system on the show. We didn't touch on the
yeah, we
crafting
did
system on
not.
the show.
No. Yeah.
And I think you can probably tackle that a lot better because I feel like you have a lot more experience with games of that nature. But and I have a ton of experience with crafting systems. You know, I love a lot of different types of games. But for me, it was just I think the one point I want to make on that it was the most user friendly crafting system I've ever played.
Yes.
You didn't need a guide. You didn't need some elongated Google doc to explain this to you. You didn't have to call your boy and have him figure it out. And hey, dude, how do you do this? Oh, Google that stuff. No, man, this you can figure this out, and it's fairly simple, but you still get that emotional, just a proud factor of like, oh, I figured that out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It
And I can't believe it worked.
it is that it is a very simple crafting system, but also very deep in the amount of things that you can craft.
Yeah,
But it wasn't. Let me take that back with deep. I would say flexible. That's probably the big one, because there's essentially like 20 different ways to make something that heals you and increases your max HP.
yep,
There's 20 different ways to create something that will give you heat resistance or cold resistance. It was just so many different ways to combine these ingredients, and all of these ways made sense. They
yep.
just absolutely made sense, and it was written into the description of the item, so you kind of knew what you were making as you were making it.
Yeah, and you know, and don't get me wrong, the crafting system reflected your poor judgment as well. If you made a shitty batch of food, you made a shitty batch of food.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
you
It
still eat it while you're fighting.
you still needed to experiment with the
Yeah,
crafting, but at least when you failed, your food didn't, like in other games it would fizzle, right? It would all your materials be wasted. At least you're left with some dubious food that gave you, I think, like what, 1 heart or something like that.
it was like half a heart
Yeah.
because it was that dubious.
It was still something to show for
It's
your
so
work.
dubious that they pixelate it because it
Yeah.
just can't be displayed. People, it just can't. But
There's
it's again the humor in the game too. Like I guess if that's a good point, there's a lot of humor in that game,
yeah,
like
that
most other games.
that ties into the NPC interactions, and that's something that you wanted to talk about.
I thought the NPC interactions were fantastic. And I want to emphasize, you know, one in particular was Bolson, because
Yeah.
you know when I fell in love with it. It was after you first interact with Bolson, and you know he tells you to go do the set mission. I'm not trying to spoil anything. He tells you to go do set thing, and then you try to approach him again, and he tells you, "Whoa, you gotta wait till I'm ready to sit down and talk to you." I love that. It just fit his personality and the character. When you guys play it, you guys will see what I'm talking about. But it's so the character. I was like, wow, man, I better see Bolson in the next game. I just add him in. He's a great character. I thought he was hilarious, and he did it. You know, when you'll figure it out. I don't want to drop any more spoiler. It's one of those things I kind of just want to let people figure out. Like, just enjoy it, man. If you decide to go that route with your choices, go that route. It's a great turnout, and I enjoyed it because if you really look at it on a strategic level, you know what I'm talking about. You get those extra slots, and then you're good to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's not just that NPC. It's every NPC has their own personality, their own responses to whatever things you can think up. It's unique to them, and that's something that you absolutely do not get in any other. I've played so many different open world games, so many different RPGs, so many games, and just the level of personality on every single NPC even no matter how mundane they may be,
Yeah.
they just have a personality. They might not have like these massive dialogue trees, but they had personality, doing
And that,
something.
yeah.
There's
And it was, go ahead.
oh, there was, just probably my favorite NPC was that creepy lady selling items in the corner of the shop, hiding there. I'm like, where's the shopkeeper? I'm looking around, all of a sudden I turn and I'm like, whoa. And I'm like, why is she hiding in the corner? And then I started talking to her, and the dialogue was, why are you hiding in the corner? I'm like, yes.
That's awesome.
So
Dude,
good.
I think my favorite interaction would honestly be Bolson is an example of how good the NPC interaction is. My favorite is the Yiga clan interactions. Those were awesome. You just be wandering. I felt like Conan at that point. Like, yeah. Hey, by the way, blah 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 blah. Yeah. Ha ha ha. Like, what? I'm gonna chop you down. It's just, I'm not trying to I'm just not trying to spoil it for people. It's so fun. Like, and then it just happens, and then you're just in the moment. And I love the soundtrack for that moment too. Right when you start that battle, it's intense. I love that music. It's probably my favorite song in the game too. Like the Yiga clan interaction. So, but the NPC is great, and I just urge you to not like Johnny said. You can play a lot of open world games. You can just kind of barrel through them because the NPCs are kind of oblivious. They don't really do anything, but they're so good in this game that I urge you, when they tell you in any strategy guide, if you read any strategy guide, they tell you walk into a town and talk to everybody. Please talk to everybody. Yeah. Every interaction is unique. Every interaction is awesome.
And it's useful too. Almost all of them will give you some sort of side quest, or they'll give you hints to suggest, oh, you'll find treasure here, or there might be a shrine there, or there might be a location, an enemy encampment location at some other place. They're always pointing you towards interesting places.
It's not, you know what, I wanted to ask you because I chose, when I first started playing this game, I chose not to Google, not to look up anything. I just wanted to explore it and just use my logic. And it reflected so much. Yeah. The dog interactions at every stable. How do you befriend the dog? Because I did read, like, reading reviews that said you could even befriend the dog and they would yield blah blah some reward. And I'm still trying to figure out how to befriend the dog. So I just have to give the dog. I'm assuming, guys, viewers, that I can just give this dog a bone and he'll give me what I need. But
that was, I didn't try that, but that seems like it should work if you give them like the many bones that you collect in the game. Just give it like a Lizalfo's horn or something.
Just toss it to him, see what happens. Like, yeah, good looking out, by the way, right here.
If you kneel down next to a dog and sort of rub your nose with the dog's nose, you'll see the hearts come up above that. And also if you feed the dog food, specifically
something like raw meat.
Yeah, like raw meat, and there's a few others. I think apples will work and stuff like that. But if you feed the dog food, that'll also give them more hearts over their head. And after a certain amount, they will lead you towards interesting places.
Great. Yeah. That's awesome. So I didn't know how to do that. Well, it looks like there's more treasure to find.
So I guess one of the last things to talk about is the dungeons.
Yeah.
And don't want to spoil anything about them other than I guess we can talk about dungeons in relation to other Zelda games, and that these dungeons are fundamentally different, fundamentally different from all the other Zelda games.
How about just what you're used to, just don't even come in expecting that. It's just not, you're going to be totally shocked.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I do want to say about it, and this is no spoiler, and it's not a negative either, they're repetitious in approach, but each one is unique, so it wipes that away.
Yeah.
Each approach is unique. And once viewers, once you start playing the game and you get into the gist of the game, you get the missions, you realize, and the story progresses, you realize what we're talking about.
It's a mechanic.
The repetition and the approach, gets wiped away because, the mechanic of it's just intense.
Yeah. If you didn't find,
plus, there's no way to explain it. I'm trying not to ruin the experience. You know what I mean? Like, each one is an experience, man. It's just intense.
Yeah, I guess maybe one of the things that you can take as a negative is that the theming of the dungeons. Yes, there's the fire dungeon and the water dungeon and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
the graphical theming, the aesthetic, right?
yeah,
All of them look the same. They all look like shrines, like the same sort of slick black techie walls and the
yeah,
and the that sort of design. It's the same type of aesthetic that you kind of see. So the theming of the dungeons isn't as grandiose and varied as other games like Ocarina of Time, the Deku Tree, right? The very first dungeon in the
exactly.
game, you're in a tree. Like it's everything looks like tree bark
You're in a tree park,
or
yeah.
yeah. So
But
very
I,
very good
I
theming
think
there.
that's an ode to the story too. I mean, that's watch story because that's part of the story. But I totally understand what you're going
Yeah.
with that. But
And
um,
that's like a nitpick. It's like barely anything.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And again, like he's saying nitpick because literally you're looking for the negatives.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what's amazing. It's like, dude, I haven't had to nitpick in a long time.
Yeah.
I can pick up a game, play for like a solid 5 hours and understand the game and just kind of nitpick. I don't need a nitpick. I can already tell what's wrong. And the interest level has just been so lackluster as of late. Like last 2 years I've been really kind of disappointed once or twice. And this game just solved the problem. It just solved it. It's just due. I feel like people like me and Johnny, I see John. I don't see Johnny all the time, but when I do, I know he's a gamer like me to the core. He played the type of games that I loved to play as a kid. But I'm telling you, man, these games don't come along, man. This
They
is
don't.
art at its finest, man.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. This is a I do not know if I'm going to be able to play a game this good at this caliber with this type of like new genuinely fantastic wonderful experience ever again. I'm
Yep.
certain it'll happen, but it took 20 years for it to happen between, this game and Ocarina of Time or like Metroid Prime, but even Metroid
Yeah.
Prime did not wow me to the degree that this game has. It is
Yeah.
just I was floored all the way through until the very end. And
What
we're
did you?
talking like 100 hours plus.
Took time off.
uh, you
I
did
could have
not
took
need
time,
to.
so I neglected my duties for a second.
It was completely unnecessary, but yeah, I just couldn't stop playing. I spent last weekend and the weekend before that, it was every single day just
Yeah.
playing Zelda. It was fantastic.
Um, I don't know where are we on the list.
Uh, Dungeons is the last one on the list, so
Yeah.
I guess with Dungeons, the other part about it that I absolutely loved what they did was they took and this isn't really spoiling anything. They took the open world aspect of the game and also put that into the dungeons. And
Yes.
what I mean by that is you no longer have to load another room in the dungeon. That is gone. There is no loading at
Yep.
all. The
It's its own
entire
world.
it is a world. It's all open. There's no load screens, no transitions, no like door open, then it closes behind you, and now you. I mean, if they did do that, which they might have, it's only because of a puzzle. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not because the engine can't handle it. This isn't.
Yeah.
And like even up until Skyward Sword, they had doors that would close behind you, and you knew that
So,
you were in a new room. And because
yeah.
of the openness of it, you had to think very differently puzzle wise. And
Yep.
it was just it was something that the Zelda franchise absolutely needed with their dungeons.
Yep. Side quests. What do you think? What'd you think of the quality of the side quests?
They were I was just floored by how different the side quests were.
Yep.
Uh, Especially the shrine related side quests. They were all
Yeah.
absolutely phenomenal. And I guess the way I tackled the side quests in this game was I didn't go out of my way to complete them, but
Yeah.
if it seemed like it was along a path I was wanting to check out anyway, then I would do it. And
Yeah.
most of the time, it ended up being that. But there were plenty of side quests I didn't care to do, like the one with the kid that wanted to see a sword, and you bring him a
Yeah.
sword and you show it to him.
Yeah.
I could have done that, but I just didn't want to be inconvenienced to do that, so I just didn't do it.
Yeah, I agree.
You do not have to do the side quests. You can do them, or you cannot do them, and that's completely up to you. And I never felt like I was compelled to do them. Now, don't get me wrong, most of them, especially the ones that you just stumble into, and there are
Yeah.
so many of them, those are
Yeah.
all phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Did you end up
Yeah.
doing that uh foresty area that I mentioned?
No.
Okay.
No. Well, no, 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 no. No. I had trouble finding it. And then I started kind of just mapping out foresty areas and just trying to do that.
Uh,
I did attempt the horned, the stag. I did attempt the stag.
okay. All
I
right.
did attempt that. It didn't work out too great because I got kicked in the face, but didn't work out too great. Those are some wily bastards, man.
Yeah.
But I'm still trying to do that. No, I'm
Yeah.
still
So
trying to do that.
so what'd
You'll
you
know,
think
you'll
though?
know, you'll know because I'll post a picture of it.
So what'd you think of the side quests?
I thought they were abundant in supply. Good point on your end. They were very random, but they were very creative, and the randomness just satisfied the urge that you were on this adventure, and it really felt like an adventure. And like most adventures that we were sold on as kids and books and movies and stuff like that, sometimes you just come by some shit and it happens, and oh well, let's take a break. You know what I mean? And it felt like that, and they captured that spirit. They captured the spirit and the feeling that perfectly. The shrine ones were great. The NPC ones for me were like bank money in the bank,
Yep.
because I knew they yielded something, but it didn't matter what they yielded. Everything is usable. Everything you get in this game is a reason. There's a reason for everything in the game, and that's another thing. It's like they didn't just add waste. There's no waste in the game. Like everything can be thought of, can be manipulated, can be used in any way, form, or fashion as long as you think about it within reason. And almost 90% of the time, it'll work out. I swear on my life.
Yep.
So I use those side quests as money in the bank for later stuff. So like I have about 10 of them, and I know will yield some type of monetary reward. So I'll just cash those in, and then when it's time to get some of the upgrades that I need to do, then I'll definitely get my upgrades. There's even an upgrading system that's been hidden. Like it's so minuscule, it's so small. You don't even think it's an upgrading system, but it is. And it requires some strategy. It's a costly investment if you're not careful, depending on how you play. But it still counts as an upgrading system, and it's done great because
Wow.
if you follow the system, the benefits for the end game are so phenomenal. And again, your character becomes OP Link, but who cares? Because the replayability of the game is intense. It's just,
It's
I mean,
it's one of the few games where you build your character to be OP. You're doing all these side quests, and
yeah,
then you actually get rewarded for it by being OP.
yeah,
Unlike the Skyrim Elder Scrolls games, those games are
yeah,
notorious for scaling the enemy to your level. They
yeah,
always match the enemy, and there's some wiggle room within there, but they match up to your level. So as you're leveling up and getting stronger, the enemies around you are also doing the same thing. This game, no, that is not the case. You'll encounter tougher enemies, and they'll throw more tougher enemies at you as you get stronger, but
yeah.
at any point you can go to the
But
weak
the
ones
game,
and
but Johnny, the game levels out though, and I'll admit, I don't. Now that I'm thinking about it, and we're in the discussion, and not to rant again, but the game levels out because it depends on your play style, and
yep,
I think it really just depends on your play style. If you're a Russian kind of guy, and the game gives you tips, it
yep,
tells you, approach this game at a certain point, certain tips will start coming out, and they'll give you advice on how to approach the game better fashion if you're having some issues, but um again, depending on your approach, I've encountered some fights where I got I kind of stumbled upon something. Mind you, I'm OP at this point. I'm like 15 hearts. I almost have a second stamina wheel. My armor's impeccable. I'm rocking around with the Master Sword like it's my freaking 357 on my hip, and I've had it all my life, like Rick. And I just got the Helium Shield, so I'm rocking it. And it's the most durable shield in the game. and I'm loving it, and I'm walking around like a badass, and I still got killed because I wasn't paying attention, and then I swarmed into an encampment, and it was a little bit too much, and I didn't see the high level Bobokin hit me so hard, regardless of 15 hearts, it depleted almost half.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and I think and remember, guys, I know it's like any game, it's all really logic based. If you sneak up behind a Bobokin, you can stealth kill it. If you shoot it with an arrow in the headshot, it does more damage. It reflects that as opposed to shooting at the body.
If you
And
do
just
their match an elemental weakness and
yeah.
exploit their weakness, you can do that elemental wise. If they're an ice enemy, you hit them with a fire arrow.
Oh, and another thing I forgot: if you do the dungeons, there's major rewards for the dungeons. So
Oh yeah.
that it again, how you tackle the game, hint hint, is how the game will reflect and how easy the game will be for you or how hard the game will be for you. So
And that is true all the way through, especially at the very end.
yeah. Oh, see, I haven't beat it yet, man. I'm not lying, brother. I'm milking this one. I
It's
think
worth
I'm gonna complete everything before I go at Calamity. I think I'm just gonna kind of wipe out all the side quests and see if I can max out all my armor caches and all that stuff. I'm milking this one, Johnny, man. It's been a while, man.
All right. So I guess final thoughts. I'll start, then you can
Go ahead.
give yours. So for me, this is without a doubt going to be one of the greatest games of all time. It's up there with games like Ocarina of Time, Mario Galaxy, Super
Yep.
Metroid. Like we're talking at that caliber. It might some a lot of people are going to consider it probably the greatest game of all time. I'm up in the air in that. I need to give it some more time,
Yeah.
and some people might not, but it is definitely going to be in that discussion, and it actually might be my new favorite game of all time. Of a list that hasn't changed in like 20 over 20 years, and that list never had the top 3 games. My top 3 favorite games of all time, none of them were Zelda games, and now it's probably going to be
Awesome.
a Zelda game at number 1.
Yeah.
So
Um.
what's your last
I
thoughts?
guys, yeah, my favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy VII, only because it was the first major RPG game I really dived into, and I took it seriously. I played the previous ones, but I was an active kid. I was really into sports and stuff early. But I'm telling you, man, when I played Final Fantasy 15, it captured me. It sold me. I actually sat down and experienced what it was to play a classic RPG game, and it made me feel really good about the accomplishments and just the vast the world. It was gorgeous. Probably not considered the greatest game of all time, but definitely the
It's
game that
definitely
sold
up
me on the
there.
game.
Yep.
Oh, it's definitely up there.
Yep.
Uh, this Zelda has provided that feeling for me again, man. And there's only been 2 games actually. No, I'll give it 3 games that's done that for me, and it's been Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid,
Yep.
for the PlayStation One, and Ocarina of Time. Those 3 games, just that's what gaming is. You know what I mean? They sat down, they took their time. The quality of the game is so pure and so the sweat, blood, and tears when you hear people say that, you feel that, man. They
Oh
put their
yeah.
time into it. They took their time, they took their heart, and they listened to the fans. And you're not going to find too many games that are gonna respect that. You know what I mean? And you know, like you said, Johnny, man, I'm waiting on the greatest game of all time. But I'm telling you right now, a new Hall of Famer's just been inducted. Maybe probably, you know what I mean? Just that's automatic inductee. Like this guy stepped into the game first day and he made it.
Yep.
So kudos to Nintendo, man. Where I think they're down and out, Johnny, they always jump back in hardcore, man, and they bring me right back, and I have to spend another $500 to get back into the Nintendo life. You know what I mean? But when they do it right, man. And a lot of companies should just follow that theme, man. Follow that message, man. That's quality work. You're never gonna get that good.
Uh,
When do you think you're gonna see the next greatest? What game? I don't know what time. I feel like things comes in circles. So when do you think the next? How many years is it gonna take for you to get this feeling again?
oh man. I don't even know if it's gonna happen again.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a lot. I think it's gonna have to require some sort of like interaction change, probably a VR game of some sort could
Yeah.
certainly do that, because it is going to be a very new experience.
Yeah.
But there hasn't been something on VR that has done that for me yet. Certainly very interesting, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's that's the thing. When I finished this game, I posted on Facebook. I had a worried emote or emotional feeling of worried, because I don't know if I'm gonna experience something like this ever again.
Yeah. Amen, man. I second that, man. I understand, man, Johnny. I just, you know, I love this kid, man, because we when we talk about it, we just stand there and we just know that, yo, man, we're not gonna have this feeling. In about a month or two, we're just gonna be back to barren land. And it's like the impending doom that I don't want to face, man.
It's gonna be more games with like stamped fetch quests, stamp this,
Yeah.
stamp that. It's like, oh, you're doing the same mechanic thing that I've seen in like 30 other games.
Yeah. Nothing
Uh,
quality, nothing new, nothing fresh. Just
yeah.
and if you do see something new, nothing fresh, you know, it holds your interest for like what, 30 days. I
Yep.
mean, it's poor, you know.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on, brother?
That's it. I think we covered the full gamut of
Yeah.
things. So that'll be it for today's stream. If you want to catch bits of it, you can catch it on Twitch. The videos will be on there on the historical part on the channel. But also, I'll be cutting this up and putting it onto YouTube. For those of you watching that are on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Same thing goes for Twitch. You know, show us
Yeah.
some love. Hop onto our Facebook channel, our Facebook page. Go to our website. All of it is the Geek Down. So just throw that into Google search and like everything that you see on that list of the Geek Down, and
The
that'll
more you
work
like,
out.
the more we'll do.
Yep. And until then, stay tuned for our next show. It's every Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're on Twitch and also on WMF Radio if you want to listen live.
Yep. Shout out WMF Radio, shout out the Geek Down, and thank you, John, man. Thanks for putting me in. This is great.
Yep. All right. See you all later.
Later, guys.